Hello, 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 and welcome to Electripreneur Secrets, the Electrician podcast. We're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. The irony is that service is going to take care of the others. So let us help you today, this fine Monday morning. I'm your host, Clay Newmeyer. With me, as always, my esteemed crying co-host, Joseph. He's wet in the eyes, but he means well here. He's not actually emotional, guys. It's just some
Oh,
allergies. Joe, how are you actually feeling today?
I'm feeling awesome. And for anyone who's watching me, occasionally my eyes just do this. One of the fun benefits of being a neurodivergent, staring at a light, your eyes occasionally water. But I love doing what I'm doing, so don't take this as a sign that I'm not happy to be here.
See what Joe is willing to do for you guys. He's willing to stare
Mm.
right into a bright light so that there's no
Hmm.
shadows under your eyes, just tears flowing down.
Yep. And you know what? We can always just say tears of joys
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure if I turn this light off, you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, he definitely looks like a guy with two kids." Like I get it.
Looks like a guy with two kids. I think he's referring to the bags under his eyes,
Yes, that's
ladies
what I
and
meant.
gentlemen. That's awesome. How was the weekend? Time with the family, Joe?
It was great. It was one of those things where we were able to, and honestly, any time that I have time with the family, I'm a happy man. It's my number one why is being the best dad and the best husband I can be. So if I have that opportunity, I consider it successful. What about you,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah, definitely. Great day, weekend rather. Worked on the garden. Some really great outputs. You know the thing about just labor in general, especially when it comes to your yard and flowers and gardening, is when it's
Mm,
all done and you just pay attention to the birds and the animals and the bees and the spiders and everything floating around, just enjoying the space and living their lives.
hmm.
It's crazy, man. It's just
I love it.
crazy how fulfilled you can feel after that work.
It's the closest feeling I can compare it to because I agree. Like actually, I built some furniture this weekend, so like having the ability of looking at it and be like, "Oh, it's nice." But for all the electricians listening out there, guys, it's the same feeling you get when you finish roughing in a panel or finish wrapping it in, and you look and you see those perfectly lined up right to the breaker terminations, and you're like, "Yeah, I did that.
Job
That
well
looks
done.
nice." Or
Definitely.
a perfectly piped in job where you're like, "Look at the offsets. This is phenomenal work."
Yeah.
The same concept. So relish in it, man.
And I know you were saying you had a good weekend, but then a bit of a contradictory statement there. You said you built some furniture. That's what I call a relationship test.
Well, believe it or not, I was going to say it was actually really nice. I had my daughter with me and I'm teaching her how to build stuff. So it was a teaching lesson. And
Nice.
I was listening to my favorite mentor, Sadhguru, talk to me while I was building. And it was nice. I kept calm. I kept patient. There was minimal swearing and I was able to impart some life and skill lessons to my daughter. So I
That's
really think
awesome.
it was a good thing.
Yep, I can appreciate that too. Speaking of mentors and imparted wisdom, I've got one right now that ties back into electrician marketing secrets.
I'm all yours. Let's do it.
Okay. So, got a mentor that said this: if we successfully market the problem we want to solve to the people experiencing the problem, then the sale is ours to fuck up. Excuse my
Mhm.
French. The
Yeah.
sale is ours to mess up, rather, because I've been told that a good leader, does not curse. So I've retracted the F word and I've inserted mess up. Okay, what do you think of that statement? What does that begin to mean? If we properly market the problem we want to solve
Mhm.
to the person experiencing the problem, then the
Mhm.
sale is ours to mess up.
From what I understand from that statement is like imagine you know that there's a neighborhood that has they frequently loses power, right? And you're like, okay, well, how can I solve that problem? The first thing would be, well, how can you solve that problem? I can offer generator backups. Great. So you know you got someone who has a problem. They lose power multiple times a year. And you yourself, on the other hand, hold the solution to where you're like, I can, within 15 seconds of you losing power, have it automatically kick on and you never have to stress about a thing. Back to Christmas Eve, no problem. I can see where if you had the right solution to the right person at the right time and they don't buy, then it's your fault.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah, you laid that out really well. And that's why it also supports another statement we've all heard: niches get riches. Have you ever heard
Mm,
that before?
Yeah, from you. I love it.
What it really means is that people are willing to exchange currency to solve their problems.
Mm-hmm.
And another way we might have heard this before is feed a hungry crowd. Here's the challenge that we tend to have, though, and this actually ties back into price books, if you can believe that. In business, 80% fail, and half of them say there was no market for their services because they go into a marketplace with assumptions and poor
Mm-hmm.
communication to that marketplace about how
Mm-hmm.
they solve a problem. Being an electrician does not solve a problem. Being an electrician speaking to a specific problem and offering a specific solution solves the problem. Do you get that distinguishment?
That is.
Here's how it ties into price books. A price book's a pre-written thing where we're making an assumption about the problems we solve and the client's problems that they're experiencing. So tying this perfectly together. So
Mm-hmm.
when we go with a price book with 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 items, we're
Mm-hmm.
approaching a home thinking which compartmentalized portion of this price book does this customer fit in? And we're constantly trying to fit people into our structure.
Mm-hmm.
That's where business goes wrong. We're constantly just trying to grab anyone who will buy anything and just put them into, compartmentalize them into this little place. When in reality, what we need to do is spend more time understanding the problem and then providing a solution to everyone with that exact problem.
That makes complete sense. And I actually have a very specific example that I'd like to talk
All
about.
right.
Would it be okay?
Yeah, let's do
So,
it.
so there was a situation where there was a town called Southfields that was nearby us. And there is a community in Southfield. I'm not going to specifically name it because some people might know, but it's a condo development that was
Yeah.
built in, I think, the 60s, 70s, somewhere around there. And we would go to we'd go to that condo development, and we started noticing that every single time we went, it almost always went back to the panel. It was always back for some reason. Didn't matter what it was always the panel. So what we found out was that they were all built at the same time. They were all poorly installed, and they were all installed with aging and outdated infrastructure that just starts to fail out of no reason, just due to natural effects. So what we started doing was actually contacting and calling the people in that development and saying, "Hey, we've noticed that this is a problem, and we're actually the provider for your area to solve that problem. And we'd like to know when you'd like us to come by so we can solve it for you." So we had found a problem, we identified where that problem was, and we said, "We are the people to solve it. Here, do you want us to come out and talk to you about it?" And
Absolutely. I
I feel like it's
love
a
that.
perfect stitch.
Yeah, 100%. No, no, very relevant, 100%. And here's the reality of where most electricians are at.
Mhm,
We come into this field and we go to marketing agencies and all the endless promises that are there. And
mhm,
we try to put all of our chips into Google and website SEO and maybe some lead middlemen, Angie's lists,
mhm,
the different apps. And we invest in those and then we step back and we wait for the phones to ring.
mhm.
None of that had much to do with a specific problem or solution, except potentially your website if you were niching and making sure that you were speaking to a specific problem. Does that make
I
sense?
Yeah, I feel like all that is almost like you drop the crab trap, you put it down, and you're like, that's it. I'll just wait and come back for it. When something bites, I'll come back. But it's like, okay, but I'm hungry now. What do I do? How do I get this going?
Yeah.
So
So
I think,
make no mistake, it's
mhm,
important and it's a great proactive effort. But again, just like we said with recruiting, should I be fishing with just one rod and one line?
no, you want every line you can.
And that's just not the only channel. It's not the only bucket, as we say.
Hmm.
People calling us and telling us their problems. So you said something really important I want to call attention to
Hmm.
finish this understanding or continue this understanding of what marketing is. We have to know what we call an avatar.
Hmm.
What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? What does that look like?
Hmm.
Who are the people experiencing that problem? And where are they? And the more definite we are in this description of those people and where they are and what their current experience is,
Mm-hmm.
the more we understand that, the better we can engage. Engage in what? Engage in the conversation that's going on in their heads, the ones with the problem. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get really basic here.
Love it.
Really basic. If you're someone who's choking, very evident problem. Anyone can see a person choking, right?
Mm-hmm.
They stand up. Let's give it some visual here. You're in a restaurant. They stand up. They do the awkward thing. You can tell they're in panic, and they run for the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever see this, guess what? You can be a solution provider. Go follow them to the bathroom. They're choking. Go help them. People are like cats. We like to recluse when we're dying for some reason. This actually
It's
happens.
so true. It's like you want to get anyone to do something, anything, and they won't want to step out of the show. Like, no, I'm going to go die quietly in the corner. Please, I don't want to infect anyone.
And I've got basic first aid, so I know what you got to do. Hi, I'm a first aider. Can I help you? They're doing those. They're choking still. Yes, the answer is yes. Help me. That is a solution to a very evident problem. No one can say no to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way. That's a very dramatic visual that I wanted to give us all, because that is the exact same forces at work when we're marketing ourselves. So let's talk about what doesn't work then.
Mm-hmm.
I am a residential electrician. Okay. And what?
Who's that solving, right? Or even worse, residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, just like all those different things.
Yeah,
Who are you
we can
speaking
keep
to?
describing the markets that we're in based on what other electricians would understand. But does a homeowner understand what a residential electrician does, Joe?
Not at all. In fact, honestly, as a residential electrical specialist, I often had to explain very basic terms, even when they called me out to their homes. One of the most clear example was people will say, I'm going to change panels. Panels are what I do. Panel. I went to a home once where the woman, and I don't want to say anything particular, but it was a female, didn't know where the panel was, let alone didn't know what the panel was.
Yeah.
Called it a fuse box. So if I list panels as my things, now I'm in a situation where I'm alienating the exact people I'm trying to solve.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, it's a great example because I know a lot of people who say this on the calls with us. If I could just do panels, upgrades, swaps,
Mm-hmm.
man, I'd be rich, because it's typically a great profitable, great margin job to do.
Mm-hmm.
Full day of work, sometimes two, depending on the size of the work and the service upgrade or et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, great jobs, but difficult to market.
Mm-hmm.
You know why?
Because, at least in my mind, people don't need electricians or don't think that they need electricians until the day that they suddenly do. It's like everything worked just fine until it didn't. So they're in a situation now, they don't have the awareness of their product. They don't know what it's doing. They don't know what it's supposed to do. They don't know how it's doing what it's doing. They just know the light stopped working.
Yeah, exactly. The lights are a far more powerful marketing exercise than a panel
Mm-hmm.
change will ever be, because there's a physical symptom that they understand
Mm-hmm.
and are experiencing. And when the lights go, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to help with that. When the kitchen counter plugs no longer work, that's a problem. Kitchen's full of
No,
appliances. What now?
no one wants extension cords running across their kitchen countertop.
Right? But most panel changes are a result of either an electrician showed them on the inside for the first time and realized, oh boy, we got some
Mm-hmm.
service issues here. This needs to be cleaned up. B, I want to add something, and they don't know what circuitry is. They don't know how many circuits they have. I've never met a homeowner that opened their panel cover and went, oh, yeah, well, if we wanted to do that renovation, that remodel, we'd have to get a new panel because there's not enough circuits in here.
Oh my God.
Never
Or
met
like,
a homeowner that went, hey, we want a hot tub, but this is a 100 amp service. That's not going to fit. Hot tubs won't run. We're already a full panel. Have you ever met a homeowner that knew those things?
I mean, the only way that I've ever seen anyone come up with that is when they're holding a quote from someone else and they're reading off it and pretending like they're not. I'm just in the market for a NEMA 350 amp plug, for my garage. Just need one. It's like, okay, you're doing an EV charger. Cool. You could just say you didn't even need to charge. You've already gotten quotes. I'm cool with it.
Yes. Yes. And that brings us to a brilliant point. When you speak to an exact problem with your solution,
Mm-hmm.
you become the specialist, the trusted specialist in that avenue. Would you agree with that, Joe?
I 100% would.
And so, in many cases, by being marketed correctly, or as our mentors actually call it, offer linking,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that offer links to the exact solution we're aiming to provide, they won't even call anyone else, especially if you show up offering 6 options. So, again, that first piece we talked about, successfully market the problem you want to solve to the people experiencing that problem, then that sale is yours to mess up. Here's
Mm-hmm.
that component. If you've got 6 options from the finest money you could buy to the most bare bones you could possibly offer, showing that you'll work with them at any budget range, then you're not going to mess that sale up.
How can you? Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, you have a problem. I not only have a solution, because here's a problem, here's a solution, it's a yes or no. But when I have a range of choices from the finest money can buy to the most tinfoil, bubble gum, and shoestring option I can come up with, it's up to them to decide what they want to do. If they genuinely wanted to solve it and I had every possible way it could be solved, it becomes much harder for someone to say, no, I don't want to solve it anymore.
100%. So let's back up a bit more and talk about what goes against us. Why is this so counterintuitive to speak to one thing and one thing only? Any ideas around that? Like, hey, being a residential electrician is a
Mm-hmm.
wide net.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get more clients that way, won't I?
Ideally, yeah. If you have do more things, you can. But I think the reason why people get stuck is there's almost a fear of rejection in a way that goes into it, where you're saying, like, I can solve, you put me against any other residential electrician, I could solve a ton of things. I'm really good at what I do, but I'm worried they might tell me no. Or I'm worried that if I make an offer, I'm going to be seeming like a salesperson.
Hmm. Yeah, that for sure. Yeah, there's that like the direct outreach piece I'm feeling there.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's also just even speaking to it generally in your marketing versus speaking specific.
Mm.
And I feel like that piece, the main driving factor is this idea of if I have a wider net, I'll catch more fish.
I see your point. Yeah.
And if I'm only marketing this one little niche, how many people could actually be experiencing that problem? Let me enter an example here. Residential electrical service. For many years, the redheaded stepchild industry here, it was
Mm-hmm.
thought that a company can't survive on residential service because the inherent risk of call volume,
Mm-hmm.
of volume of work, all these small jobs, we can fill a whole business schedule with this year round.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure, Joe? It's been proven time and time and time again. When you do this right, you could float a business, not only float a business, but have one of the most lucrative electrical businesses in any industry in
Mm-hmm.
residential service from just the small stuff.
It's true. Small stuff adds up. And you think about it, like, there are so many times when people would say, well, what job do I want? Me personally, give me the outlet that doesn't work. The reason being is I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a home where someone says, I have one outlet that's not working. You're like, great, small thing. You would think that nothing's going to fix it. But then you're looking and saying, okay, why is it not working? What's going on? Was it backwired? Is it old? What is it controlling? What is it feeding? What does it affect? And now suddenly I have permission to look at everything. And I can solve this problem by solving all of these at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I do. And our whole process outlines this and makes it so possible to build these thriving companies. That said, marketing is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we'll just narrow it down. And the question you might be asking yourself, well, narrow down to what? Engage in a conversation in their head. How do I do that? How do I think like my customers? That's the real challenge. Just like, how do I simplify language in my 6 options so it's stuff they can understand and I don't have to explain? Because I guarantee you this little timeout here, if you're over explaining, you're losing them.
Yeah.
If you're using language they don't understand that you have to explain, you're losing them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't want to do that. That's that messing up the sale piece. We don't want to lose people. So we need to use their language. So I'm going to give you guys a huge action item right now. Takeaway. I'm shifting this into action mode. Is that okay, Joe?
Go for it. Dig in. Roll the sleeves up. I'm ready to go.
The efforts that no one is taking on actually having the exact language you need for your marketing and thus differentiating you in your marketing efforts is at today's customer's house. It's in the sales process that you're running. A lot of our marketing language comes from the calls we get on, because who better to tell us about the problems we're solving than the people experiencing the problems who aren't electricians?
Mm-hmm.
If electricians made this one shift, if you literally made an exercise and said, you know what, in all of our marketing from now on, we're going to use customer language, not our own.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you people would see a massive return on that one thing in your electrical company. Just use their language. But here's the problem with this. Here's why I think that most of us won't actually do this.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it takes you going after the call, taking notes, keeping records of the observations you made, but the language they used throughout your observations,
Mm-hmm.
not yours. Does that make sense, Joe?
It does, and it actually ties into a concept that I was very familiar with, known as verbal packaging, where a lot of times a customer has an understanding of what a thing does, or has a thing of what it is, but is not really aware of what it does. Like, as an example, I can say, I have a switch, right? I have one switch on the wall. And as a customer, I may think I buy a switch, it's $1 from Home Depot. I see them in a box every time I walk past them. But instead, what if it's a lighting control point? That is a point of the electrical circuit that controls that light. Okay, great. You want to mix it up? What about dimmer? That is a variable lighting control point. It now controls different speeds, but I can speak to it. And now not only am I describing the thing, but I'm describing what it's going to do for them. So if I ever talk to someone who, for some reason, didn't know about the product that I was using, because we verbal package things, they can be understanding what it's doing, not what it is.
100%. And when you get in using that verbal packaging and people become your clients, even as a specialist who fixes generators, for example, from the generator class we did last week,
Mm-hmm.
the common train of thought might be that, well, then people only call me for generators. And the reality is everyone that does call you for generators is also going to trust you and your great service for everything
Mm-hmm.
else. And even more than they thought, if you properly listen and communicate with them and help them understand all the ways that your offers help them. Does that
Exactly.
make sense?
It does. I mean, I've had specific situations come up where you go to small calls and they turn into bigger things because as you're talking to them, they understand it. They're like, okay, this makes sense. Now I get it because I trusted you with something small. I can now trust you with something a little bit bigger because I've already seen the kind of work you do and I've seen the person you are.
Yeah, for sure. And before we go into all-star action, there's something really important we're going to tie in here today.
I'm all yours.
We actually talked about this earlier in a class already.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you guys some free class insight here. And it's from a mentor of mine who talked about the power of asking. You ever heard that phrase, ask and you shall receive?
I mean, yeah, it's literally tattooed to me. I get it.
Yeah, you got the tattoo. You got that whole backstory. So what does that mean then, Joe? And you know what? Let's stay somewhat general and try to make this a 120-second conversation, just a couple of minutes on
No
this.
problem. I'll leave all the theology out of it.
Yeah.
So ask and you shall receive is along the lines of if there is something you want, unless you can articulate it properly, you will not receive it from others. The only way to get something is to say, I'm willing to say I want it and I'm willing to go to the source to get it. And in that attempt of asking, that is you taking action on your desire. and desires are only rewarded by action.
100%. I love that. And the reason we're tying that in today is because if your Google, if your websites, if all of your incoming marketing fruit, all your inbound leads are not firing on all cylinders right now, then you need to take action. This is a time to take action on getting leads. And that's why we bring up ask and you shall receive, because outbound lead generation is similar, other than you need to ask for it. And what you ask should be very clear. And just like Colonel Saunders did with his chicken recipe, 1,009 times later, asked and he did receive, and became one of the most widely known chicken franchises on the planet. The important piece here is ask and tell. This is something I wanted to impart on you guys. Ask and tell what, Joe?
Until you receive what you're chasing.
That's the big distinguishment here. Most people never even get to asking for what they want. But I'm telling you, you can have everything you want in life, including more clients, if you will ask and tell. And what that means is direct, outbound, go, hang door hangers, do the good neighbor program, go in social media groups, talk to your followers, engage with people, because homeowners need electricians at some point. That's a wide, wide net as it is. So all we need to do is target a specific problem for a defined period of time and go talk to our people and ask until we receive. Not asking will do nothing. And only asking a couple and realizing, oh, this is hard, I don't like this, will also yield very, very little fruit. But asking until you strike gold, asking until you recognize who to ask, what to ask for, why you're asking for it, and how you're going to solve what you're asking for, and articulate it, as you said, will yield so much fruit that you will have a limitless market to access in your company.
That makes
Not
a
to
lot of
mention,
sense.
if your process serves you then making the most of every lead, like ours does on the inside track here at Service Loop Electrical. Little plug there. Joe, I think we got to get to this all-star action, and I've got to shut up because I've been talking a lot on this one. Big monologue.
No, but I
Do you
love
have
it though.
anything in mind for this?
Yeah. So realistically, for an all-star action, I think you said it really, really well, where some people just get stuck and they don't even do the ask. I would say for the all-star action, do we even know what we're going to say when we get to the door? Like, people don't visualize where they're trying to go. And as a result, they don't know what to do when they're actually there. Now, I've heard, and also I'm going to give you credit for this because you've said it very well, that the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So, what we can do for the all star action is I want you to physically walk yourself, eyes closed, to the front door. Imagine the customer opens it and they are greeting you enthusiastically. What would you say? And then, in addition, have the same response for when they're neutral and have the same response for when they're negative. Because if you can imagine all three situations and have a response prepared, it's going to seem like nothing can shake you. And if nothing can shake you, then why wouldn't the customer be willing to entertain your thought?
Yeah, I love that. Huge takeaways, Joe. I thank you for that. Making sure that, guys, if you need more leads or not, we're advocates of what we call the Good Neighbor program. We should be talking to every door around, not every door, in the Good Neighbor, the adjacent doors and across the street at minimum. Because what happens is if slow season strikes, then what?
Yeah, we got to be training for slow season. That's our goal, is saying we want to eliminate slow season across the board throughout our industry. But the only way we can do it is working smarter.
100%. And guess what, Joe? We got to wrap this one up, but let me just close with this. There is a ton on the subject of marketing. Very few people will talk about what we talked about here today. From a strategy standpoint, understanding who it is you're talking to and understanding the problem that you're addressing, the solution that you offer, and tailoring that solution to their experience of that problem. And then while recognizing wholly that it could be years before another electrician sets foot in this home, or maybe it's even been years already. And so it's within your due diligence to discuss other matters with these people, understand their experience, create a list of observations, and create offers that will help them in their quality of life. If you only did that, you'll never have a slow day again.
Amen. That really well said.
Okay, guys, we're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, apparently marketing too today, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. We've got some great episodes coming up for you this week. So stick around, join us. Clay Newmeyer here, as always, my esteemed co-host, Joseph Lucani. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and looking forward to the next one.
Take care.